Senator Nelson, you had an amendment to offer,
Yes, sir.
which you're going to also withdraw.
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, for purposes, since we were operating informally before, I'll offer the Citrus Trust Fund amendment and withhold it. And now I would like to offer a second amendment, which is an algae amendment that I've talked to Senator Coburn about. I will not ask for a vote on this because you do not think it's germane to this FAA bill. Basically, we have in law a trial run of a tax credit for making ethanol from cellulosic. This is a trial run that the tax credit of $1 a gallon goes through the end of 2012. And it was obviously a tax credit that was to bring capital to look to a new source of ethanol. Very promising. However, when this was passed in 2008, nobody thought about the definition of cellulosic, not including the definition of algae. Now, some of you are from northern climes, and you may not know about this noxious substance called algae in humid environments that grows, and all we want to do is to get rid of it. Well, what we found out is that we now have a process by which, from algae, when you combine it with sunlight and, of all things, carbon dioxide, it produces a gallon of ethanol, and for every gallon of ethanol from that algae, it produces a gallon of fresh water. So the definition on this trial run of cellulosic, since it technically doesn't include algae, I would ask that we have that. The chairman and the ranking member have said that they will bring this up when we do an energy thing. The cost is de minimis because, again, it's a trial run. It's basically to get capital flowing into this very promising new technology to create ethanol. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity of letting me offer my amendment and looking forward to an energy bill.
I might say, Senator Nelson, a lot of people have talked to me about the potential of algae. We have a lot of coal in Montana, for example. We produce a lot of it. We're trying to figure out a way to make our coal cleaner. And based on what I know at this point, I could be proven wrong, that algae has a great potential. And I think it's very important that we find some way to help deal with cutting back on greenhouse gas emissions and other noxious emissions from power plants. And to the degree that algae proves out to be one way to do that, that's very helpful. And I think this is something we should keep working on to see the degree to which it makes sense.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Grassley.
Yeah. I want to speak in support of what Senator Nelson's doing. I think in the process, though, of speaking in support of it, you don't have to talk about algae needing some sort of incentive. Well, it does need an incentive. But the point is that already the Defense Department feels it's such a very important source of possible energy, so we're not so dependent upon foreign sources of energy for our national defense that they're already putting a lot of money into it. And then I would also remind the senator from Florida or any other senator that leading up to algae or any other form of cellulosic ethanol or whatever's out there that we don't even know exists today, is that you find a lot of opposition today to the subsidy for ethanol. And people that find opposition to it would say, well, you shouldn't be using grain because it's food for an energy. We ought to go to cellulosic ethanol, or we ought to go to algae ethanol. And I hope that you'll remind all the people that might end up supporting you, and it's a very important thing to do, that you wouldn't have the second generation of ethanol if for the last 30 years we haven't had some government support of the ethanol industry in the first place. And so thank God somebody 30 years ago thought that we ought to have ethanol so that we could go to doing it like you in a very efficient way from algae, a source of energy that people thought would be ridiculous. It's a throwaway item. It has no value. It might have value. But all of this comes on the shoulders of 30 years of support for ethanol. And we need to do that. And at the same time we're thinking about subsidies for ethanol, remember that sometimes the very same people that want to do away with the subsidy for ethanol are the very same people that support subsidies for big oil and the oil industry and the natural gas industry. And the sort of intellectual inconsistency of being for one government subsidy but being against another government subsidy. Or the very same people in the environmental movement that opposes or joining forces with big oil to fight ethanol subsidy because you can't have both a mandate and a subsidy, but those are the very same people that want the rural electric standard, which is a mandate for wind energy. At the same time, you have a subsidy, a tax credit for ethanol. So these are some of the things that we need to be educating our colleagues about, and I hope the senator from Nelson will help in that process. The senator from Florida.
Senator, I have supported you on corn ethanol, and I have supported that for years. And thank you for your kind comments about algae ethanol.